The second straight season, the Mabel-Canton Cougar volleyball team is heading back to the XL Energy Center in St. Paul as they have qualified for the state tournament once again. And here to preview the state tournament, head coach Lonnie Morken. And coach, you got there last year and you return again this year. What has been similar between those two teams? Are there any differences between the two teams?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Darren. We're super excited and proud to be representing the school and the communities in Mabel-Canton and southeastern Minnesota, Section 1. And so similarities starting off, I guess you could say last year we had 10 kids at the state tournament. 2 were seniors, all the rest were freshmen and sophomores. So we were relatively young last year with no juniors. And so returning, we had 8 kids that were, had state tournament experience. And so that's the first place to start. We graduated Sophia Morken, who was an outside hitter who's playing college volleyball at St. Ben's right now. And then Mackenzie Kelly was our libero. And so first and foremost, we had to kind of figure out how to fill in those 2 positions. And sophomore Tyler Wentold is kind of playing the outside hitter position that Sophie had last year. And junior Lydia Votlin switched from a defensive specialist to libero and is playing that spot. But everybody else is kind of the same, right? Sahara Morken is setting. Our right side is Hope Erickson. We'll talk about her later. She missed the whole regular season except the last 2 games with a broken wrist. And our 2 middle hitters are Kimberly Soini and Sejal Slafter, and then Keeling Olsen was our other outside hitter, and then they're joined in the rotation with Ava Jacobson as one of our DSs. And so there was a lot of similarities just because of the people, but differences, right? Every single season, you have adversity to overcome, and I know somebody that doesn't know anything about Mabel-Canton volleyball would look at our record and say, "Oh yeah, 35-1. You didn't have any adversity. How can you go 35-1 and have any adversity?" Well, first week of practice, Hope Erickson at a scrimmage breaks her wrist, and so she's out all season. And the initial prognosis was done, right? I mean, there was a lot of tears shed by her and her mom and me and some of the girls and stuff. And so we had a freshman, Ella Halverson, step in, who had only played middle growing up, and playing right side in volleyball is probably the most challenging position because you've really got to be good at everything. And if you're not a lefty, it's a really hard, unnatural swing to hit. And we kind of were teaching Ella on the fly, and she came up with some humongous kills and blocks. And we had a great Class A showcase where we beat Mayor Lutheran, and we beat Cleveland, and we beat New Life Academy, and we beat McRae, and we lost in the championship to Minnesota, but Ella was our right side. We beat a phenomenal Spring Grove team twice in the regular season with Ella, and we ran the table with Ella as our right side. And so she provided something that we don't have a lot of in Mabel, and that's a little bit of size. She's only about 5'8", but she jumps really well. And so when we got Hope back, then we kind of moved her back into her position. But we had that adversity, and then just anytime you deal with, we feel like we always have expectations, and we don't talk about pressure at Mabel-Canton because pressure is a privilege, and I try and get our kids to embrace being the team that a lot of times has a target on the back because we've been pretty successful for all these years. But we started out as preseason number 2 in the state, right, Darren? And only 2 other times have we ever been ranked preseason that high. And so that right there is, a major bullseye, a major target, right? And so, and we held that position all year. We never wavered from the number 2 spot. We played some really, really good teams. We beat some teams ranked in the state, and we never left the number 2 spot. And so it's a little different perspective also. Last year, we were kind of the underdog a little bit, right? We beat an unbelievable Kenyawanna team in 5 in the section semis, and then we beat Bethlehem Academy, who I think was 4th at the time in the state, and we were 6th. So that was a little bit of an upset. And so it's different having the underdog role, whereas this year now, we didn't. And so a lot of similarities, a lot of differences.
And you look at this year's team in particular, you mentioned managing the injury to Hope Erickson there. In other ways than that, how has this team grown since you started your formal practices in August to this point?
Yeah, well, it's really cool because two of the things that Sophie and Mackenzie had on our team that were really kind of difficult to replace was their just energy that they brought, right? Just their energy and their leadership. Sometimes when you have seniors, they are able to lead in just more ways than one, right? Girls are very uncomfortable being vocal leaders. Well, Sophie Mackenzie did a great job. A lot of times you'll get seniors that are leaders by example because they just work so hard and they're like, guys, let's go. We're making this senior year the greatest season we've ever had and stuff. And Kenzie and Sophie did do that. Well, with no seniors this year and a lot of girls returning, some of the girls really had to step up and become kind of the team leaders. And, certainly Sahara and Sajal and Kinley kind of are three girls that had a lot of individual success last year, certainly embraced that role. But then other girls like the Kaylee Ingvalsons and the Lydia Botlins, whose roles have improved and just gotten bigger, they gained a lot of their leadership roles have improved and just the confidence in them. You can see they understand now that more is expected of them, but they're able to do it. They're able to get the big swings and the big passes, and more attention is on them, but they're coming through right now.
And when you talk about developing leadership, is that something that happens organically? Is that a role that kids need to accept? How does that happen? Because I'd imagine it's easier said than done.
Well, it is. One of the famous sports quotes is, leaders are made, not born. And I'm a firm believer that if you just instill confidence in kids, especially girls, you can make them believe that they can do things. And the tricky thing about a coach is you have to make kids believe that they're great, right? But the ultimate challenge is to make kids believe that they're better than they actually are, right? And I think if a coach can figure out how to make kids believe that they're actually better than they are, that's when greatness happens. And so we talk a lot about team stuff. We talk a lot about understanding that your success is not as great as the team's success. And if you are feeling poorly or you're playing poorly, you have to shake it off, right? Because you're one person on a team. We have other kids that are going to have your back. And Saturday, Kinley and Sajal didn't play their greatest games of the year, and that's okay, because then we had Hope Erickson, Tyler Wentold, and Kaylee Ingvalson played unbelievable. And so, and Sajal and Kinley were still both good, right? But when you're used to just this elite level that they both play at, Fillmore Central had a triple block up all the time on them and made things a little bit more challenging. You know what? It was like, that's okay. We got these other kids that are going to still come through. And so the confidence level that our kids got from playing really, really a great game on Saturday is just going to be immeasurable going up to the state tournament.
And one match I'll ask you about in the postseason is your sectional semifinal against Alden Conger. I believe you dropped the first set. You ended up winning that one in 5. You touched on the adversity that you dealt with and the growing this team that has done. Did that come to fruition in that sectional semifinal?
Without a question. And looking back now, when we talked to the kids on Saturday about this, I thought Alden Conger played better against us than potentially Kenyawanna did against Fillmore Central in their semifinal. So Alden had us up against the wall. They played phenomenal. I mean, best match I'd seen them play. They played Spring Grove in the round of 8 earlier on Tuesday and beat them in 5. But Alden made a ton of hitting errors and a ton of serving errors. And as the match progressed, their hitters started tipping and rolling shots and finding open areas on the Spring Grove team because they had made so many hitting errors. And so Thursday, we were really prepared to pick up a lot of off-speed stuff. Well, Alden came out guns a-blazing, kept balls in bounds, ripping balls. Their senior libero was phenomenal. I mean, just digging everything. And speaking with their coach and stuff, she thought they played just unbelievable, right? And she was so happy with how they had played compared to how they had played against Spring Grove. And yeah, anytime you go to a 5th set, right? And the 4th set, we were ahead and they went on a major run and we ended up losing, I think, like 25-18, 25-19, something like that. So it wasn't even like a 25-23 game. And so it was great though, seeing the girls in the huddle. And we never talked really about returning to the state tournament this year. It was kind of an unspoken goal, obviously, after getting there last year. But you could just see the girls, there was something in them. There was no wavering in their eyes. There was no poor body language. You could just see that they're like, all right, let's get after it, right? And we ended up winning like 15-8, 15-9 or something in the 5th set, kind of dominated. And that really led us into the match on Saturday. And Fillmore played great against Kenyawanna. I think the first set they won 25-6. I mean, it was just outrageous. And then they just, finished the match in 4 and really played well. And I think most neutral observers probably would have said, "Oofda, Mabel was in a lot of trouble Saturday." And geez, and then we come on and see them. I never dreamed that was going to happen, Darren, in the section finals against the 6th, 7th ranked team in state.
And I know you had the tough competition here in section number 1. You've traveled to a lot of tournaments and faced some really good competition. Do you feel you're tournament tested and tournament ready going up to St. Paul this week?
Yeah, I do. Minnesota seed the top 5 teams in their classes for volleyball, and we ended up getting the 3 seed, which whatever. Some of people are a little surprised we didn't get the 2 seed, or after Minnesota lost to RTR on Saturday that we didn't get the 1 seed. But who cares? Heck, we're back to the underdog role, Darren. We love it. We're the 3 seed now. We're not supposed to win. So our first team we play is Badger Greenbush Middle River. And it's weird because 6 of the 8 teams that made it to state last year are back. And so for whatever reason, 6 of the 8 are back. And so Badger Greenbush is the team that played up at the state tournament last year. So we certainly aren't going to catch anybody by surprise because it's their first experience, And so they're a good team. They run a 5-1 offense. They're a little bit smaller in the middle than they were last year. They had 2 really, really elite middle hitters for a high school team. And then the coach's daughter was a setter last year, and she was all state. She was very good. And so they graduated heavy, but like most strong programs, you don't really have a bad season or a down season. And so here they are back to the state tournament. And so we're trying to get a little bit of scouting report on them and stuff. But, we talk about this all the time in sports, and in volleyball, we'll talk about, it matters more what we do when we have the ball than when our opponent has the ball. And in football, basketball, whatever, every sport is that way. And state tournament is certainly that way. It's a lot like our section tournament this past week, where it's just a quick turnaround. Boom, 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 boom. So we're going to try and be really well prepared for Badger on Thursday. And then, I'll be staying up late this week and making scouting reports on our potential opponents. But I don't want our kids, worrying about any of that stuff. The only thing they're worried about right now is Badger Greenbush. And then I'll whip out our scouting report on the teams based on who we play on Friday and Saturday. But we're not going to start talking about, if we play New Life Academy or Mayor Lutheran or RTR, this is what they have. I just want them solely focused on Badger Greenbush. And then obviously we'll have a banquet and we'll practice and go to escape room and go eat a lot and, just take in the Twin Cities, because we are there for the state volleyball tournament, but it is going to be an unbelievable experience. And the support we got last year from Southeast Minnesota was just unbelievable. And our booster club and donations and stuff is just, it's so special playing and coaching in a small town and small school. And, no place I'd rather be than Mabel-Canton, man.
And final question for you: with so many of your young women having experience at a state tournament already, does that maybe add to a little bit of a comfort level? Or when the first serve happens on Thursday night, it's just like, this is state, let's get the butterflies out of the way and play?
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a little bit of anxiety, but, after going last year, for 20 years, I was the only one really at that time that could say, oh my gosh, guys, it's so fun. It's so cool. We get to do this and we get to do that and we get to do this. And so last year we went in just kind of like with that deer in headlights look, right? And we played really well, right? But it was still like, oh my gosh, this is new. And I know you were talking about this, but until you actually do it, you don't really understand what it feels like. But now with our kids, we had our team meeting yesterday on Sunday to order our tickets and for the banquet and other things. The girls just started flooding back with the stories from last year. And remember when we did this, remember when we did this. And, it'll be very similar. There'll be some differences, but the times are the same. The banquet is the same. Our practices are the same. And so it's not going to be as much of the unknown, and so it's hard to predict how we're going to play, but I would hope we're going to come out and play really well that first match, Darren. But if not, we'll make adjustments and we'll fly. And if we lose the first set or the second set, we're just going to keep playing until hopefully we win 3.
All right, Coach, congratulations on another trip to St. Paul coming up this week. And here's hoping you have as much success as possible up at the XL Energy Center. Best of luck to you this week.
All right. Thanks, Darren.
Lonnie Morken, head coach of the Mabel-Canton Cougars, 4th trip to state in school history, 2nd straight trip to St. Paul for Mabel-Canton.